I sold out for $2 million. Well, yesterday, the same company that I sold for $2 million sold for $240 million yesterday. So I didn't get any of that.
Colonel Harlond Sanders was born on September 9, 1890 in Henryville, Indiana. He was the oldest of Wilbur David and Margaret Ann Sanders' 3 children. His father, Wilbur Davis, was a land and farm owner who lost his life in a horse riding accident. Harland was just 5 years old when his father died, and he had to shoulder the responsibility of taking care of his younger siblings while his mother struggled to find work to support their family. His mother eventually found employment in a tomato cannery. By the time he was 10, Sanders had learned to cook. He would often practice cooking and would become a very good cook as a result of this. At the age of 11, Sanders obtained a job working on a farm, but was fired because he spent too much time with the animals instead of performing the tasks he was hired to do. His mother was enraged when he lost the job and shouted at him, calling him lazy, useless, and even went to the extent of telling him that he would never amount to anything in life. Sanders was extremely depressed after this, and he made a promise to himself that he would succeed in life. However, Sanders' life was about to change. His mother remarried a man who turned out to be abusive and would beat Sanders and his siblings horribly. Sanders could not take the abuse any longer and decided to run away from his house at the age of 12. Sanders was very close to one of his uncles and decided to live with him in Alabama. For the next 4 years, Sanders would work any job he could get. He sold tires, insurance, and even delivered babies as a midwife. At the age of 16, Sanders decided to serve in the army by lying about his actual age. While serving in the army, Sanders spent time as a wagoner in Cuba and received the Cuban Pacification Medal for his efforts. In February 1907, he received an honorable discharge and relocated to Sheffield, Alabama, where his uncle resided. But his stint in the army has nothing to do with him being called Colonel Sanders. Stay with us as we uncover Sanders' remarkable story and discover the real reason he is fondly remembered as Colonel Sanders. Sanders had 3 children by the time he turned 19. And he needed to support them with a steady income, so he decided to try his hand at working in the legal industry. He completed a law course through a distance learning program which he received via mail, as this was before the internet. That goes to show you how determined he was. Unfortunately, Sanders couldn't make it as a lawyer because of his short temper. He once got into a fistfight with one of his clients while representing him in court, and hence was blacklisted in the legal industry and could not find any work in the future. Later, Sanders obtained employment with a railroad company, but he lost that position as well due to his poor performance. His wife Josephine was tired of Sanders' failures and chose to leave him, selling all of their belongings and moving their children back to his parents' place. Sanders was devastated when he lost his job and then learned that he had also lost his family. Overcome with grief and anger, he went over to his father-in-law's house and hid nearby with the intention of kidnapping his children. Thankfully, his father-in-law saw him and was successful in defusing the situation. He eventually reconciled with his wife. Unfortunately, Sanders' marriage was not going to last long. He divorced his wife in a couple of years because one of their sons died at the age of 20. Their marriage had quickly crumbled because they both found it difficult to cope with the grief of losing a child. At the age of 40, Colonel Sanders' marriage had ended. He had also lost a child to the cold grip of death and was down and out. Looking for a way out of the dark clouds, his heart took him back to cooking, an activity that provided him with a lot of comfort during his difficult childhood. Sanders put out a single table that could seat up to 6 people, where he would initially sell steak, string beans, and hot biscuits. It brought him support at a low point in his life and some additional money. He set up his little restaurant at a Shell petrol station in Kentucky, which he was entrusted to manage. In the beginning, Sanders didn't serve chicken because it took around 40 minutes to prepare well-cooked fried chicken. A faster way to prepare fried chicken would require him to compromise on the quality of the end product by deep frying the chicken, which would make the chicken dry, crusty, and unevenly cooked. Pressure cookers were slowly gaining popularity at the time, but were mostly used to cook vegetables and rice. Sanders decided to experiment with frying chicken using a pressure cooker. It took a lot of trial and error to find the right combination of time, heat, pressure, fat, and filters, but eventually he discovered a way to cook chicken in just 7 to 8 minutes while preserving the flavor and crispness of the end product. Sanders then went on to create his secret blend of 11 herbs and spices that would be the secret ingredient elevating his fried chicken, making it finger-licking good. Thanks to the chef's special fried chicken, Sanders' gas station eatery became a local favorite, and Sanders started advertising his fried chicken joint by painting adverts on local barns and walls in the neighborhood. However, Sanders' aggressive advertising and increasing popularity angered Matt Stewart, who was a local competitor who owned a gas station eatery in the same area. He started painting over the advertisements Sanders had put up. Sanders threatened to shoot the man if he did not stop painting over his signs. But Matt couldn't care less and continued covering up the advertisements. As a result, Sanders went to confront Matt at his gas station and took 2 of his employees who worked for him. As soon as Sanders and his employees reached Matt's gas station, Matt started shooting at Sanders. Matt ended up killing one of Sanders' managers, and Sanders shot his rival in the shoulders in self-defense. Matt was sentenced to serve 18 years in prison by the courts. Sanders' brush with death had a major upside for his business, as there was no competitor in the area after Henry was sent to jail. Due to Sanders' standing in the community, the governor of Kentucky, Ruby Laffoon, gave him the honorary title of Colonel in 1935. The title was honorary and had nothing to do with Sanders' military rank, but Sanders still adopted it and went by Colonel Sanders, with many referring to him as just Colonel. The popularity and demand for Colonel Sanders' food grew so much during the 1930s that he decided to expand his food business and opened a restaurant that could seat over 150 people at once. But just as he seemed to have finally found success, his restaurant burned down, and by the time it was rebuilt, World War II had begun. Because of the World War, Sanders' main customer base, which consisted of tourists and travelers, was dwindling. This was a difficult time for his business, which was looking to bounce back from an unfortunate accident. When the war was over, Sanders opened a new restaurant that was doing well until the 1950s, when tragedy struck yet again. A new interstate highway was being built that completely bypassed his restaurant, drastically cutting his sales and forcing him to sell off his business at a loss. As a result of this, at age 65, he had no business or other source of income besides his savings and a monthly Social Security check of $100. Sanders went through a dark time, but because of his vast experience with facing adversity all his life, he was not ready to give up. His resilience and determination was about to change his life forever. Colonel Sanders' story shows us that there will always be ups and downs in a person's business or job. That is why it is important to diversify your income stream so that you don't heavily rely on just one business or job. Check the video description section to access our free workshop that will help you diversify your income and keep you financially safe and secure. Do subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you don't miss out on a single video. Sanders knew that he had to start over and use the experience and skills he had gained in the last 10 years while building his first fast food restaurant. But he decided to apply a different business model this time. He didn't want to open another brick-and-mortar restaurant himself. Instead, he decided to franchise out his secret recipe, which involved cooking the best fried chicken in less than 10 minutes by using a pressure cooker along with his secret mixture of 11 herbs and spices. Sanders hit the road looking for existing restaurants who were interested in adding fried chicken to their menu. His plan was simple. He would approach the owners of the restaurants and cook them his renowned fried chicken. If they liked the product, he would stay on for a few days and do a trial run by cooking for their customers, hoping that they would like it so much that the restaurant would sign up as a franchisee for his chicken. However, in reality, Sanders had a difficult time in executing the plan. He faced over 1,000 rejections before a man by the name of Pete Harmon decided to sign up as Sanders' first franchisee in 1952. Pete Harmon owned a chain of fast food joints in Utah, and his sales more than tripled in the first year itself after he got into business with Sanders. It is a little-known fact that it was Pete Harmon and not Colonel Sanders who came up with KFC's popular slogan, "It's finger-licking good chicken." After this, there was nothing that could stop Colonel Sanders and Kentucky Fried Chicken from becoming successful. KFC became a household name in Utah, and in no time, businessmen from all across the country were lining up to open new franchises. Colonel Sanders and his team trained the new franchisees on how to cook the perfect chicken, but didn't give away any of their secrets. They would still closely guard the recipe for the mixture of the 11 secret herbs and spices from potential copycats, and would deliver the pre-made spice mix to the franchisees. This secret recipe added to the secretive aura around KFC and elevated the brand's value in the eyes of the franchisee owners and the customers. By 1964, Kentucky Fried Chicken had almost 600 outlets across the United States and Canada, and was one of the most popular fast food chains in America. Kentucky Fried Chicken was a huge hit, and Sanders had finally proven his mother wrong by becoming a successful and well-reputed businessman after struggling for more than 70 years. But Colonel Sanders didn't get his fairy tale ending. Sanders wanted to secure the future of the company he had built from the ground up, and because he had no one to look after the company after his demise, he was looking to sell the fast food chain in the mid-1960s. This is where John Brown Jr. comes into the picture. John Brown Jr. was a local businessman who had a good knowledge of the food and beverage industry because he owned a chain of barbecue restaurants in Kentucky. John was convinced that he could take the iconic fast food brand to new heights because KFC had managed to open 300+ outlets without spending any money on sales and advertising. John approached the Colonel with an offer to buy out KFC in 1964, and after a lot of convincing, Colonel Sanders agreed to sell his company for $2 million. However, Colonel Sanders was worried about the quality standards dropping if the company was commercialized like John Brown had planned. So he made John promise that he wouldn't tamper with KFC's recipe and have strict quality control measures put in place. John wanted Colonel Sanders to carry on being KFC's brand ambassador, as the Colonel commanded a lot of goodwill amongst the customers.
Have you heard of that finger-licking good Kentucky Fried Chicken?
Even though Sanders was 73 years old, he was still heavily involved in the advertising and PR campaigns for KFC after its sale. Colonel Sanders loved being in the spotlight and would often make appearances on popular talk shows on television, donning his iconic white suit and black string tie. Thanks to John Brown's aggressive and structured approach towards sales, KFC had almost 1,000 outlets by 1970 and had expanded overseas to countries like Japan and England. In 1971, John sold his stake in KFC to Huebline, which was a giant of the alcohol and fast food industry, for a staggering amount of $285 million. This was the beginning of the tussle between Colonel Sanders and KFC's management. I hope you're enjoying this video. Do subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you don't miss out on any of our amazing business stories. Watch as we uncover the shocking reason behind Colonel Sanders suing KFC in 1973. John Brown had agreed not to mess with the Colonel's recipe, but the new corporate owners had made no such promises. The new management of KFC, Huebline, began to tamper with the Colonel's original recipe to improve their margins and simplify the preparation process, which would make it easier for them to expand globally. For example, they replaced Colonel Sanders' thick original gravy with a cheaper and easier-to-make version. This did not sit well with Sanders, who was especially proud of the quality of his gravy. He once said, commenting on his famous gravy, "It'll make you throw away the darn chicken and just eat the gravy." When Sanders first tasted the new chicken recipe, he exclaimed, "My God, that gravy is awful. They shouldn't be allowed to sell it since it's just pure wallpaper paste." He didn't like what Huebline had done to his finger-licking good chicken as well, calling it a disgusting fried dough ball stuck on some chicken. The public criticism of KFC's dishes irritated a lot of the franchisees. In 1978, one of the franchisees decided to take Colonel Sanders to court for defaming the company in public and causing damages to his outlet sales, but the case was dismissed. Sanders, who was still the poster boy for the company, disliked the new product so much that he planned to teach Huebline a lesson by opening a competing fast food outlet with his original recipe. Sanders named his new diner Claudia Sanders, the Colonel's Ladies Diner House. Sanders managed to rattle the new owners of KFC, who claimed that Sanders was infringing on their copyright by using the word Colonel to open a competing business in the same industry. Sanders decided to countersue KFC for $122 million for using his image on new promotional material and marketing campaigns in which he wasn't involved. The case was settled out of court for $1 million, but this agreement stipulated that Sanders couldn't use the Colonel trademark for his new venture. The diner was renamed to Claudia Sanders Diner House and is still operational in Shelbyville, Kentucky, the birthplace of the original Kentucky Fried Chicken brand. In 1980, at the age of 90, Sanders passed away after a long battle with leukemia. He was a workaholic and was working till a month before he passed away. Despite numerous failures, rejections, and tragedies, Colonel Sanders stuck to his guns, and his resilience paid off at the ripe age of 65. The Colonel's charismatic persona and powerful character continues to live on till this very day in American popular culture. KFC continued to grow under the management of Huebline, who had streamlined the company by focusing more on takeouts and limiting the menu for the popular brand. KFC reached new heights under Huebline's ownership, with almost 7,000 outlets in 60 countries worldwide. KFC clocked sales of almost $3 billion per year. In 1986, Huebline sold KFC for $850 million to PepsiCo, who were looking to strengthen their food division, which already had famous brands like Pizza Hut and Taco Bell in their portfolio. Under PepsiCo, KFC introduced many iconic products like the hot wings in 1990, chicken popcorn in 1992, and the spicy burger in the international market called the Zinger in 1993. Thanks to the huge success of these new products and the deep pockets of one of the biggest brands in the world, KFC had finally become the second most popular fast food chain in the world behind McDonald's, with more than 10,000 outlets which employed almost 100,000 people worldwide. Today, there are over 25,000 KFC restaurants in 150 countries. And it all began with an old man who refused to give up and started cooking chicken in a gas station. The Colonel's success story was a triumph of determination, perseverance, and sheer willpower. The Colonel's life was nothing if not filled with drama, but it gave us many valuable lessons on how to keep going on in life. If you enjoyed this video, check out this video we made uncovering Marvel's rise, fall, and redemption story.